Let's try it once from the top. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Sister Alaska Lott.
And I'm Sister Babeushka.
And this is Utter Nunsense. This is Utter Nunsense. Utter Nunsense. Utter Nunsense. So confusion. That was utter nonsense. And this is the show where we pour a cup of tea. It's hot.
Boiling. And we chat about utter nonsense. Blah, 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 blah.
So yes, let's chat about what this show is actually about, what we're doing. And I think the original idea, I can't even remember who had the original idea.
I think it was probably your original idea after, we were sort of doing a bit of collabing on things. So I'm giving you the blame for this. Don't worry.
Yeah, so I guess the premise really was just that we wanted to, do more online stuff, talking about the sisters and relevant topics, but have it be quite conversational. So it's kind of like you're watching or listening into someone else's random chats, which always amuses us quite a lot, even if it doesn't amuse anyone else. We were going to talk about like a different topic each time and do it maybe once a month, because we have, unfortunately, this is not all we do with our time. We have secular lives, secular jobs.
Yeah, we're quite busy people, doing activist stuff as well as our own lives and other things we're involved in. Oh, who has the time to do everything?
And yeah, I think initially it's just going to be the two of us while we try and figure ourselves out and what it is that we're doing here. But then, like, once we're a bit more into it and know how it works, then we can maybe invite occasional other sisterly friends along to come and chat to us about different topics and find out more about them as well. And the great thing is that because it's all done online like this, that there are no boundaries. People, like, we're not restricted to just local nuns. We can talk to people from anywhere we like. And anyone in the world can find us and watch this. It'll be like two people.
I mean, the two people is already us, so we need a third person to watch.
Oh. We have other places online that you can find us as well. So you're welcome to look us up. We can probably stick some links on our YouTube channel or in the description so people can find us wherever they happen to be. There can be links, so you can find us on other platforms where we are as well. So whether it's like Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or wherever we happen to be, you can come and find us and see some of the other things that we're doing.
So I think just to give an idea of some of the stuff that we're going to talk about over coming episodes, how we've joined the sisters, our first manifests, gender diversity in drag, what is it like being a drag activist in the 21st century, chosen names and dead names. So there's I think we've got a whole massive list of things that we want to touch on. Yeah, we'll see where this goes, I think.
Yeah. I think it's totally worth saying that everything that we say here is personal opinions. These are just our own thoughts and randomness that comes out of our heads. And every sister will have their own, things that are special to them or particular points of interest, different ideas for how to do things. So this is all very much just us as individuals sharing the random nonsense that comes out of our mouths sometimes.
we needed to find a place where to shove all this nonsense that we kept talking amongst ourselves with. So this is it.
It was far too amusing to keep it to ourselves, so we thought we'd share it with everyone else, right? And what kind of nonsense are we going to chat about today?
Well, today we're going to take a look at our first interactions with the Order of Perpetual Indulgence.
Who is the Order of Perpetual Indulgence?
They are a shady bunch of bitches in Edinburgh.
We are a 21st century international order of queer drag nuns, and we are LGBTQ activists.
The order started in San Francisco in the 1970s, and since then has become a collective spanning the entire world, with houses and chapters everywhere you can think of.
So educational.
Like from Antarctica, no wonder. No idea why.
Order of Perpetual Indulgence. You're a member, and you have been for just over a couple of years now. But how did you first find out about them?
Well, I first found out about the Order of Perpetual Indulgence while attending one of the Prides at Edinburgh. Obviously, there is a house based in Edinburgh in Scotland. So they make appearances at Pride and other events. And so that was my first time sort of seeing these fabulosa dressed people. Yeah, it was the first time spotting them and going, oh, that's who those people are.
So did you know who they were? Like, did you speak to them, or was it just a visual thing? Like you just spotted these amazing make-upped beings?
So at first it was just spotting, and then as the Pride event went on and they gave the speech about why Pride matters, and then while they were mingling with everyone during the march and afterwards, getting to speak to them then and finding out what's all this about? Why the look? You know, as somebody does when you first see such fabulous looking beings as us now.
Why, thank you. I'm so modest.
How about yourself, Alaska? When was the first time that you ever found out about the Order of Perpetual Indulgence?
Oh, I would say there was probably two encounters actually along that initial journey of discovering who they were. So the very, very first time I ever found out about them is when I saw one single sister, and it was at an outdoor busk for a different event. And in amongst all of these people doing drums and acrobatics and fire and other amazing things, there was this singular, really imposing figure actually, with this white face and amazing veil, and I had no idea who they were or what they were about, but I knew I needed a picture. And so I just went running up to them and said, can I have a selfie with you, please? And they turned around and said, well, yes, of course, let me introduce myself. I am Sister Anne Tissy Passion. And I was like, oh, how fabulous. And I got my selfie, and then I ran off and I did other things. It was simply, yeah, this fabulous person that I had met very briefly. I knew nothing more about, and I went on my way very happy. I still have that photo, actually. Every now and then it crops up on my Facebook timeline. I'm like, oh yeah. And then the second time when I really found out who they were was I was sitting in a pub with some friends, and they appeared through the doorway. And this time it wasn't just one of them. There was a whole bunch of drag nuns, and they all looked utterly fabulous. And they came in and they were handing out condoms to people and chatting to people about safe sex. And then they came over and they started talking to us. And it seems like some of our group knew who they were. So they sat down and they started chatting more. And there was one particular nun sat next to me and chatted to me as if we knew each other, as if we'd been friends forever. And I felt a bit awkward because I'm socially awkward, right? And I had no idea what to talk about with this person who just looked I don't know, so out of this world, and I had never met before. And they were telling us all about who they were and what they did, and the fact they were doing safer sex ministry that day. And to my embarrassment, I found out later that the person who'd sat next to me was actually someone I knew really well. And I just didn't recognize them in the makeup, and I felt so bad.
I mean, the makeup is a lot to, you know, transform an entire person.
It totally does. And it's one of the reasons that a lot of sisters give for their whiteface, isn't it? Is that it's a way of, you know, being a different person from who you are in your secular life, but also allows you to, I know, it's a safer way of having this identity for people who don't necessarily want it publicly known that they are activists.
Yeah, it feels like once the sort of foundation of white's on, you've got a blank canvas to really build your activist self up so that there is a distinct side. So yeah, I do feel that the whiteface does help in protecting secular life, especially with some of the sort of events we get involved with.
Yeah, it certainly made my friends completely unrecognizable. And I had to apologize to them when I finally figured out who it was. So I'm sorry, I was so awkward. I honestly didn't know it was you. I thought it was just some random drag nun chatting away to me.
Funnily enough, I've had that same experience before joining the sisters about being in the bar with friends and having the sisters come in. But thankfully, it was the same sister that I'd spoken to previously. So I didn't have that panic of like, who is talking to me? I did have a rough idea.
They just seemed so familiar with me. And I think like they even knew my name and stuff. I was so confused. That they're psychic now as well.
Shh, don't give away your superpowers.
It's part of the gay agenda. Don't tell anyone. So from your initial conversation then with the nuns that you met, what happened after that? Did you immediately know that this was something you wanted to do?
So no. After my first sort of conversations with the sisters that were there, you know, it was very much a case of, okay, that's nice to know, thank you. And I appreciate, you know, the stuff that you're doing for the community. And that was sort of fit in my head. You know, I was like, yep, that's nice. I'm glad people are doing this. As I sort of left university and I was deciding, what do I want to do with life? And I chose to get involved in various organizations. You know,
you're going to say you decided to be a drag nun. What am I going to do with my life? Oh, I know.
There were sisters in those organizations. And so although I've never, like on my starter journey, it was very much a case of, it's nice that the sisters do what they do. It was never a thing of, oh, I'm going to run off and join them. But we seemed to occupy similar spaces at times, which was quite interesting. So yeah, I don't think it was anything that I'd ever thought, I'm definitely going to have to join the order and, you know, really commit to whatever I want to do with that part of my life. Sort of just bumbling about as a typical 20-year-old will do in life.
I think I was much the same. Like the kind of spaces that I started occupying when I moved over here was there was this crossover between people that I knew and people who were sisters or knew about the sisters. And so even from that very first encounter, when I posted that photo on Facebook saying, oh my God, look who I bumped into today. And one of my friends put a comment on that photo saying, oh, you finally met Sister Anne. I'm so glad you two have met. And it turned out they were really good friends. So it was just this kind of crossover of different communities that I'm involved with. And so after those initial encounters, I'd started realizing that some of the people that I knew were actually involved and finding out more about it bit by bit, I suppose. And there were times when they would maybe occupy the same space as something that I was involved with as well. I have this great photo. In fact, I think you're in it. You're probably in it, where it's us in cloaks, and then the sisters happened to be around that day, and they came and they joined the photo as well. And it's just, it's the best picture. It's like you've got a whole bunch of people dressed in black cloaks. And then on the other hand, you've got people in white and black veils, and yeah, it's a fab photo. Brings me joy every time I see it.
Oh, I do remember that day, yes, when the sisters just happened to rock up at the same time.
Yeah. And we're like, oh, join our photo. But let's face it, they're fabulous in any picture. If you see a sister, always include them in your photos.
I mean, you get plus 10 points just on the excellence of the photo alone for each sister. So, Alaska, after occupying the same spaces as some of the sisters over time, what was it that first got you thinking about joining?
I feel like the full story is for another day, for another episode. But essentially, it came down to that crossover in different friendship groups. And it was, people that I then knew and were friends who happened to be involved in both things that I was doing and in the sisters. And ultimately, after asking me a few times, actually, and me saying no, I'm far too busy for all that. Too much on my plate. Eventually, they won. And to be fair, it was a good choice. I'm glad they kept pestering me. I suspect your story is maybe not so dissimilar.
Yeah, I don't believe I was pestered as much. So clearly they had a favourite child.
Oh.
But I do remember having similar sort of conversations with Sister Anne, as you mentioned, actually, at various points. And I think, yeah, we have a lot of similarities in that journey then.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's worth mentioning now that we did join at the same time, literally. And have pretty much followed each other every step of the way.
You're a terrible stalker. I know where you are all the time.
But I feel like Sister Anne has an awful lot to answer for, She keeps coming up again and again. A fabulous nun who was a member of our house, but has since moved location more than once, actually. And is now, I think, at the third house that they've been at now, back in Scotland, which is very exciting. So hopefully we can, once all the COVID stuff is over, obviously, hopefully we can have a little reunion with Sister Anne, who actually appeared at the start of both of our journeys, which is quite exciting.
We'll get them on here and they can definitely answer for what they've done.
With much love and glitter, of course.
Oh, yeah. Not too much glitter, no shade.
I didn't realise that you'd met them at a pride first.
Yeah, as baby gay, and sort of going to pride. So
I'm gonna have a little confession here. Actually, here's a secret. I never went to a pride until I became a sister, and that is also a story for another day. My first pride. I came from quite a conservative upbringing, I suppose, and I grew up in like little villages and stuff. So I didn't get exposed to much of this sort of world until later on. And it was probably only when I moved to near Edinburgh that I really started to come into contact with a greater variety of people, like an amazing variety of people, so much diversity. And I really started learning more about the LGBTQ plus community at that time and learning more about myself in the process.
God, that does sound like quite a journey, because I think I take for granted just growing up in like the capital city, and so being exposed to everything from such an early age. But yeah, it's interesting, and I definitely think it will be interesting to hear more on other episodes, more about that journey as well on First Prides, and just connecting more with the LGBTQ plus community and fully understanding what it is to be an activist and supporter of that community.
I wonder if other people's discovery of the Order of Perpetual Indulgence is the same. Like, do you think it's almost always just spotting a sister and going, oh, I wonder what that is? Or do you think, I don't know?
I suppose it depends. Like, obviously, we're speaking from a purely Scottish basis in that it's slightly set up different from here than in the States. But I know that from other sisters that we've spoken to, obviously their interactions, or other novices that we have at the moment, you know, their interactions have been they went to an event, they saw the sisters, they went, oh, what the hell is going on? And they just approached and asked. So I think it's probably quite a similar story for maybe a majority, at least in where we are. I know in obviously in America, they've got a different sort of setup with charity status and everything. So there's maybe a bit more public awareness of the sisters to begin with.
Yeah, I think you could be right. And they also have some quite well-known, like particularly well-known sisters in America as well, don't they? There's one that claims to be the most photographed sister in the world. And I actually, seeing how many times she crops up in pictures, I don't doubt her. I suppose there's always the chance that people might come across sisters in media as well. Like I know that there's occasional pictures in newspapers, occasionally appeared on the televised news, and there's even occasional documentaries, which I'm sure we can discuss in more depth another day as well. I saw there was one done about the Manchester sisters, wasn't there? I watched that a couple of weeks ago. It's actually really good. So yeah, I suppose people might happen across stuff like that as well.
When you're at these events or you're seeing these things on TV, I mean, you know, we're quite striking images, you know, if I'm honest. So I can imagine
stand out a bit.
Just a smidge. So I can imagine that really draws people's attention and gets people to go, oh, what's going on? You know, so I think as well as protecting the activist self, I think by having, you know, a blank canvas to then portray what we want to portray for our faces, it also helps just get people's attention and pay attention to what we're saying or doing.
That's true, actually. Yeah, it's certainly like when we joined, one of the things they talked about was the makeup and how it does get people's attention and gets people talking. And I think actually for both of us, it sounds like that worked 100%. We were totally drawn in, like, yes, please. And it's interesting because obviously, I mean, it's different in different houses and in different countries, but certainly in our house, we have members who don't do the makeup. And again, that's probably a topic for a completely separate episode. There's so many things we could talk about. But yeah, the use of the makeup in order to get attention and spark conversations in the first place seems to be one of the most effective methods, actually, of helping people discover who we are and what we do.
Very, very true. And I think, you know, it also helps when we've got quite funny names, which also makes it easy to break down walls with people. There are some absolute cracking names, and I'm just so jealous to have them.
No, it's the names are great. I really, really enjoy them, even if sometimes it takes me a while to work out what the joke is. Sometimes it takes me far longer than it should. I'm not going to lie.
I think some names are probably a bit more, without the context that the person's come up with the name, it can be a little bit of a, huh? And then I've witnessed that even when we've been out, and, you know, we'll probably talk on it in another episode, why we chose the names that we did, but what we had as previous names, I remember watching the wheels turning sometimes when people were at least reading my name previously, and they're like, oh, okay. And then they're like, a minute later, they're like, oh, and I'm like...
Certainly, my first name, one of the benefits of it was that it was pretty quick for people to get what the joke was. And so I got to enjoy the instant reaction where people would laugh out loud every time, which I did enjoy, I have to admit.
It was pretty funny.
Thank you very much for watching today's episode, and thank you to the fabulous Sister Babeushka for having this random utter nonsense chat.
Thank you, Alaska, for having me along to talk absolute nonsense.
It's been really fun actually finding out more about how you first discovered the Order of Perpetual Indulgence, because I don't think I ever knew your story before. So it's been interesting sharing, and probably leads us on quite nicely to what we're going to do next time.
Yes, Babeushka keeps her past quite secret, yes. For next time, obviously we touched on it a little bit today with how both Alaska and I joined the order. So we were thinking it would be quite a nice progression to talk more about that and what our individual journeys towards the sisters culminated in. Obviously, you can see the final product here, but we'll touch more on how that went.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And I think there is probably where our stories are going to converge a bit more.
You're all going to get sick of hearing, oh, we did this together, we did that together, we had this together.
One day, we're just going to become the same nun with two heads.
That's going to be really difficult to find a good dress to wear with two head holes. Just saying now, custom making dresses is going to be the thing.
That's true, but imagine how fabulous the makeup would be, because you could have like matching looks or you could have contrasting looks.
That thing I saw on TikTok with people going, I'm Mr. White Christmas, and the other one being Mr. Red. We could both do one of those faces and just sing at each other. It'd be great.
Yes, we should do that.
Well, you all know how this show is going to end, like 101 episodes from now.
Oh no, we spoiled the surprise.
I think that's it then.
Ooh. Ta-da! We did the thing. 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 Woo-hoo.
That should be the clip that we play the outro music over.